Hi, welcome to Astrology for Gain Traders. My name is Olga Morales. Now, I've been asked by a few people on Twitter to um, sort of explain the 90-degree dial that I use predominantly in my analysis as I'm a cosmobiologist, and we use the 90-degree dial and midpoint. So what I'll do is, if you've got Solar Fire, it's the only program I use, so I don't know how many other software programs have the 90-degree dial. But anyway, we're going to look at Freddie Mercury. He's one of my favorite singers. So let's just go back to the normal setup of a 360 wheel. And how do we change that into a dial, a 90-degree dial? Well, there's a drop down and it has dial. That's how easy it is. Now, I like this one in particular because it actually shows you the degree and the sign that the planet's in. So it's sort of easier reference for just to distinguish where they are in the zodiac. Now, I'm just going to say from the beginning, it's very. I mean, you probably think it's a little bit complicated when you look at this style, but what you've got to think of, it's basically the 4 quarters, the 4 quarters of the year, starting at the cardinal ingresses, all overlapping. So there's four circles or dials of 90 degrees all overlapping on top of one another, and they all start at the ingresses, the cardinal ingresses. That's why it's so good for Gann work. So the 0 point here is the 0 degrees of the cardinal signs. So Aries, Cancer, Capricorn, and Libra. I should have said that first, okay? So they all start at 0. And then the next 30 are all the fixed signs. And then the last 30 are all the mutable signs. So when planets come together, like closely together, because we've got to use really tight orbs with midpoints. Usually the maximum is 1.5 degrees. So, but when they come together, they either have to be conjunct, square, or opposite. So it's a fourth harmonic. Anything across the dial, like in this particular instance for Freddie, his sun is across the dial to his Jupiter Venus, which is amazing. That's why he was so lucky, and in his creativity and expansion and all the Venus energy. It either has to be 45 degrees away or 135 degrees. So that's your eighth harmonic, okay? And you can check that. Like if you put up your grid, if we put up the aspect grid, we can have a look. His sun it's actually 45 degrees away from his Venus and Neptune, okay? So that's really a lovely part of his chart. So what you can do is once you've got the dial up, you've got a center, you've got these arrows that can animate and go around to every planet in your chart. Now, I always tell people to look at their part of fortune. Freddie had it right at 15 degrees of um, Taurus, okay, 15 and a bit. And look at and then you have to look at all the combination of planets that your part of fortune comes to, because that's going to tell you a lot about how you can make the success that you have, and by what planets are going to help you in that respect. So he's got some really cool. Look, he's got Jupiter midheaven and Venus ascendant. Now this could be a little bit tricky if you don't have accurate birth data. So with Freddie, we're not exactly sure if this is the right time. So the part of fortune is very, you can only use it if you have exact birth time, because it's actually based on the distance between the sun and the moon, and it's projected from your ascendant. So you need to have accurate birth data. Okay, but you can do this for any planet. So you just keep going around to any planet in your chart and see what midpoints it makes. Okay, so that's what I do. Now, you also have reports here, plenty of stuff on midpoints. You can have the listing of where the midpoints are, if you're not sure. You can have the axes here. You can make that to 90. It's probably better. The midpoint trees, which is basically the same as us pointing this arrow to a planet, will give you the same midpoints that it comes to. And just have a bit of a play around in there. So hopefully that explains how I get this chart up. Okay, so the first thing you do when you convert your chart is just have a look at, you know, where the planets are natally. But then what you can do also is look at transits. So we can go to BioWheel and let's do the transits for Freddie today. And so you've got the outer wheel. Now, how I do this is that you point the transiting planet on the outside. Like we know that Mars is at about 22 today, or 23 of Aries. So once you can see that I'm pointing to 23, it actually tells you here it's 23. So if Freddie was alive, it would have been at the midpoint of his Mars, Jupiter, okay? Across the diaphragm is midheaven and Venus. So there would have been relationship things happening for him and maybe a little bit, some sort of, dispute or something like that, a bit of a angry exchange. And also, it's upon his moon and part of fortune. So that could have been an opportunity. Now, Mars is not always negative, but it can bring you some sort of excitement. It can be enterprising energy too. And we know if the markets, it is the fuel of the market. So that's what you've got to do. So when I say, have you got anything in a particular degree, just go around on the outside and it will activate natal positions in your chart. So I hope that's sort of helped you to explore your charts and good luck.